She watched her best friend die in her arms and carried that grief for 25 years, not just in her mind, but in her body. And when she finally processed it, everything changed. Welcome to the WTO podcast, friends. My name is Molly Smith, and I'm on a mission to equip a million people with the tools to recognize when they're in the funk, but more importantly, how to pivot out of it. By tuning in today, you've joined me on this mission, and I am so glad you are here. My guest today has one of the most powerful stories I've seen of what it looks like to carry grief for decades and what can happen when you finally confront it. Stacey Miller lost her best friend in a traumatic accident 25 years ago and spent the years that followed trying to move forward, to heal, and convince herself that she was okay. But it wasn't until she was forced to confront what was still sitting under the surface that everything began to shift. And what unfolded from that healing is something she could have never predicted. Her intuition didn't just get stronger, friends. It came fully online, opening the door to a whole new level of awareness and spiritual connection. You may know her as the Claire Diaries on social media, where she has been documenting what's unfolded for her since doing this deeper healing work. Buckle up, friends. This story is pretty wild. Please join me in welcoming Stacey Miller to the WTF podcast. Hello, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad you're here. And just for full disclosure, friends, I found Stacey on Facebook through her posting of her spiritual journey and what's happened. And this story is so wild. You guys are going to love it. But it starts tragically. So, Stacey, take me back to what happened with your friend Jenny 25 years ago.
Mhm.
Take us back there.
Okay, absolutely. So my best friend Jenny and I, we met in high school and then we went to college together. And my parents lived in Australia and they weren't going to be living there long. So we wanted to make sure that Jenny had an opportunity to get out there while they were still living there. And so we were 22 years old and we took a trip out there. And it was 3 days into our trip. It was Mother's Day and we wanted to go for a hike along the ocean. And so we took, my dad put his car onto a ferry. We went on the ferry over to this island where we went for a beautiful Mother's Day hike. And it was an amazing day. The ocean views were amazing. We were just like having so much fun, soaking in the fresh air. And, as we were walking, a big wave came and it like splashed us and got us all wet. And we started laughing. We're like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy how big that wave was. And then right after that, another huge wave came up over the path and it knocked Jenny and I off of our feet. My little sister was 10 years old at the time. She was right next to us. She did not fall over. So we kind of both fell just on our chest. And my dad was above us videoing it as it happened actually. And he was like, oh, are you girls okay? And we're like laughing. We're like, oh my gosh, we're fine. And so we just laughed. We looked at each other. We went to get up. And as we went to get up, another huge wave came and it swept us into the ocean. And so we battled wave after wave, being, like one wave would push us up against the rocks. We would look at each other like in complete horror, like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? And, trying to hold on for dear life. And then another wave would come and sweep us back into the ocean. And so
Oh,
I'd say that happened like maybe 7 times before we finally were pulled in by an undertow. Meanwhile, in between those, we're like swallowing water, choking. My little sister ran to get help. My dad, obviously, through the camera, ran down to try to like navigate and help us, tell us where to swim. And, eventually we got pulled in by an undertow. And so it's like you couldn't see above, below. It was just like pitch black everywhere, bubbles. I had an eerie peace come over me. I got really warm. I accepted the fact that I was going to die. And just as I stopped fighting, I started like floating in the middle of the ocean. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so my dad was like, pointing, Jenny's over here, Jenny's over here. And so I started swimming over to her. By the time I had gotten to her, her feet were already like kind of sinking and she was unconscious and had water pouring from her nose. And so obviously I tried to give her mouth to mouth while I was holding up some water, but that didn't work very well. And so I just grabbed her and I held her and we waited for 45 minutes. I tried water with my best friend in my arms for 45 minutes before we were rescued. And so, I mean, I was like kicking off my tennis shoes. I was untying the sweatshirts around our waist. So like to lighten it up, anything I could do to keep holding her up. And so I just sat there and talked to her the whole time and said, "We're gonna be okay." I believed it. I had to, and as we're waiting for somebody to come rescue us, obviously people above had understood that 2 Americans were swept into the ocean, and they lined up along the trail and started, like, cheering my name, saying, "Come on, Stacey, you could do it, you could do it." And so, they gave me every ounce of human hope that they could, and, it kept me fighting, and eventually a speedboat came and grabbed Jenny. There was a helicopter waiting. They were taking her to the helicopter. And then, one of the lifeguards came with a noodle for me. I would joke, I was like, they came with me with a noodle. I mean, I know it sounds like funny, but it is kind of funny. So, we made it onto the beachfront. They put me into an ambulance, and the helicopter wasn't leaving. And so it was my little sister was with me in the ambulance. My parents were with Jenny with a whole bunch of people down at the beach. And they had IVs on me and everything, and a doctor came to visit me, or somebody, EMT came to visit me, and was asking how I was doing, and I just said, "It doesn't matter about me. Where's my best friend? Why aren't you leaving in the helicopter with my best friend?" And I was like, is she dead or is she alive?" And he wouldn't tell me. And I was like, "Is she dead or is she alive?" And he wouldn't tell me. And I was like, "Is she dead or is she alive?" And he's, "I'm sorry, he didn't make it." And I was like, "Ah," and I tore off the IV. I ran down to the ocean. They were covering her with a blue bag. And, yeah, and I just unzipped it, and I held her, and I just
Mm.
screamed, like, "No, no, 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 no." And it was horrible, and we had to go in separate rooms to tell the story about what happened, like an interrogation, and then we had to hop on a ferry without my best friend and go home, and then fly back home and face her parents and everything, and so it was horrible, obviously.
Oh, like, wow. I mean,
Yeah,
that is so this is like a freak accident that
a
you got
freak
pulled
accident.
in and then the
Yeah,
waves just kept coming.
yeah,
Stacey, oh my god. First of all, I have
yeah,
chills, number 1, but very, very traumatic. I mean, just
so traumatic.
listening to you recite it. So, okay, so what were the next, like, several months and years? Like, how did you move
Mhm.
forward during that?
So I did not move forward in the way that most people probably would have. I was
Okay,
22.
sure.
I had, before my best friend died, we had gone to the same college, but I had decided that I was going to transfer. So I had recently transferred to a school far away. So nobody knew me. Nobody knew Jenny. I went back there and I pretended like nothing happened. And I numbed myself. I did anything I could to numb myself. I became a bartender, which was a really bad atmosphere for me to be in. I started doing drugs and alcohol, being promiscuous. I did horrible. I did things that I never could have seen myself doing, and I just did anything I could to numb the pain. And I was never like suicidal. I honestly did not care if I woke up or not the next day. And so it was just like stuff I did every day, over and over again. I somehow made it through college and graduated, but it was not a fun experience.
Yeah.
So for
Well,
years I battled that.
you actually did what a lot of people do. They
Hmm.
escape, numb, ignore, stuff it, right?
Hmm.
And just in
Yes.
your early 20s,
Yes.
that's the life that's there for a lot of people,
Mm.
especially when
Yeah.
we were in our early 20s, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
When did you start to when did you initially start to heal? Like do actually some healing work?
Yeah.
When
Yes.
was that? And what did you do?
So once I graduated college, I just, I wasn't doing anything with my degree other than drinking and, partying. And I just, I had a lot of scary incidences where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is good. If I don't call my parents and tell them I need to come home, something bad is going to happen. And so I
Yeah.
got scared enough that I called my parents. I said I need to come home. And I talked to my parents and told them I was having a horrible time. And so we found a therapist that could help with the actual PTSD side along
Oh,
with
yeah.
other therapies of the accident. And so that was when I was like probably 25. The accident happened at 22. So 25, I started going to intense therapy where I'd have to I'd have to write a letter to Jenny from myself and then pretend like she was writing a letter back to me. And it was like really hard, difficult therapy, but it helps with the PTSD, helped me language for what I was going through, and it was a really good start. But I still always had that constant anxiety, and so I would go from one therapist to another, and they would help me with them, and then I feel like they did enough, and then I'd move on to them. And so I did therapy for a really long time, and that's how I coped
Did you have any
initially.
relief? Was there any did you feel like you were resolving anything?
there was some relief for the PTSD portion and some of the portions, with, the loss of Jenny, but, like, the anxiety never left. I thought everybody I loved was gonna die. I didn't wanna get married. I didn't wanna have kids. I pushed everybody away. I treated people horribly just because I was too scared to love and lose again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely changed the trajectory of my entire life.
Oh, no question. No question.
Yeah,
Okay, so you recently did some deeper healing work. What happened? What was the trigger that led you to maybe realize there's something below the surface here? There's something that
yeah,
still needs to be resolved. Tell me about that.
yeah. Okay, so last year, come May, it was the 25th anniversary of the accident, and it like hit me like another huge wave. Basically, I was like sobbing, I was like hyperventilating, I mean, just bawling, crying, and I was like, "What in the world? How is this possible?" 25 years later, I mean, I remembered every single second of the accident, like every single second, and it was just flashbacks in my head over and over again, and so that was really concerning to me because I was like, "Here I am, 25 years later, I'm like almost 48." I thought I had done the work that I was supposed to do. I did the things that people told me to do. I went to the therapy. I talked. And
Yeah.
here I am, like, I was like, I don't understand. And so that's when I knew I was like, oof, I still have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do. And thankfully I had met people. I say that's my girl Jenny, putting the right people in my life at the right time that had been introduced to Somatic through their own trauma. And so she had just started a new class and my good friend was telling me about it. It happened to be the perfect timing. I was like, well, what do I have to lose? I mean, I'll try anything to feel better. So let's do it. So that's how that came about. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about, because I know a little bit about like somatic healing and that type of thing.
Mhm.
So tell me, like, what did that look like?
Okay. So it basically, I mean, it's not just breath work, it's a little bit more than breath work, but it's
Okay.
a technique that it addresses all the feelings that you have in your body that you don't even know that you have. And
Okay.
it's breathing through it. When you feel triggered, you start breathing, deep breathing, and then you locate where you're feeling it. Mine was always like anxious, not right here. So you locate where it's at and you kind of name it out loud. You're like, oh, this is anxious, not like, is it prickly? Does it have a color? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't the prick doesn't have a color. No, it's just a knot of anxiety. Like, what are you even talking about? Because
Yeah.
I didn't understand it, how to listen to my body like that. And so,
Yeah.
so you work through it and you unravel it until it moves somewhere else. And then if it moves to
Yeah.
another spot, you continue to unravel it until you can let your body know that it's safe now and express it out some way through your body. So mine was always through crying. Then I expressed it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you were trying to like visualize and breathe through, it was a knot in your chest. I call that attuning to it, like paying attention
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when some of that would unravel, would it move someplace else? Like, would you feel the
Hmm.
sensation somewhere else in
Hmm.
your body
Yeah.
and then it would
Hmm.
unravel a little bit more?
Mhm.
Is that how that
Yes,
worked?
like,
Okay.
that's exactly how it worked. A lot of
That's
times
so
it would go right to my upper stomach, and then it would
totally.
stay there for a little bit, and then it would move down to the stomach, and a lot of times it would go to the legs, other times it would just stop at the stomach to where you're no pain, and they say express it, and I was always, bawling, crying at that point because 'cause you're feeling all of it. You're actually feeling it rather than leaving it or numbing it, and even though I was always crying about anything, I never really felt it like I felt it through somatic.
Okay. So it was
Yeah,
different. This was a
it
different
was different,
experience. Can you
so
describe
different.
the moment where you actually felt the grief move through your body?
Yes, then that would have been so this was an 8-week course that we took weekly. We met online, and then we went away to a retreat where we did a lot more intense therapy. While I was there, I didn't know what was going to be coming out, because you discover other traumas from years ago.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I had stuff coming up I had no clue about. I was like, oh my gosh. They really started listening to the body. There was just this moment. It got uncomfortable with everybody, and for some reason, and it almost took me back to the thought of I just miss having my best friend because nobody's ever understood me like my best friend understood me. And so
Yeah.
through that breathing technique, I just felt it so deeply. And I just like that it wasn't just the loss, it was the loss of my best friend, but it was also all the feelings that were tied to the fact that I didn't get to spend all my life with her. That, that I ached to have another best friend in my life.
Yeah.
And I never understood that about myself. And I was just like sobbing, like uncontrollably. And then I like open my eyes and everybody else is like sobbing. Like to control me too because I'm so dramatic. But it was just, it was a beautiful space that they held for me. I was able to be myself and let it all out. And yeah, it moved through my body like it never had before. So much so that I was sick for like 15 days straight.
Oh,
purging
I believe
trauma
it.
from my body.
Oh,
Yeah.
girl, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I
I
believe it.
started losing weight, like all kinds of crazy stuff started happening. Like,
Really? Okay.
yeah.
So that's fascinating. Let's go there for a little bit.
Mhm,
So you have this experience at this retreat, you do this course, go to the retreat, have
mhm,
this, I'm going to call it like a purge of grief that comes out in
mhm,
the form of sobbing.
mhm,
And after you came home from that retreat, obviously you certainly felt something different, right? As
mhm.
a
Yeah.
result. What
Yeah.
else happened in the weeks that followed as a result of that experience?
Mhm. I just started really being able to listen to my body on a level that I hadn't ever done before. I think I had so much trauma that I just had never been able to hear anything that was happening. And so I started having like visions, like really specific visions, and I was like, what's that? And then massive ringing in my ears, where I mean, I went to switch off a light and I felt like it was like this static crazy noise went through my ear and then shot electricity all through me. And I was like, and like it froze me and I was like, oh, stop. And then I was like, oh my goodness. So little things like that started happening, and I kind of just like, you're just like, I don't know, that was kind of
Okay.
odd, but I'll just kind of push that away. And
Okay.
then I met with a psychic and he told me I was psychic. And I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not. So, so then I was like, okay, I am having visions. I do have dreams that come true. I do remember as a kid some things. And so I started having a remembrance of things that I had pushed way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And so that,
it's
that
interesting, and I know you agree with me here. Like, we are in the process here of remembering,
yes,
right? Like
exactly.
that's what we're
Yes.
doing here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so was it at that point you started noticing your intuition and awareness shifting, or what was
Mm.
give me some of those early moments where you thought like, okay, I'm not make like I can't explain this, but this is something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not like a networking person because I've always been very empathetic and very sensitive to people's feelings. Okay. So I always felt like the weird one. I always felt like I didn't belong and it just gave me massive anxiety, what I thought was my anxiety. Now I know differently. So I didn't do stuff like that. And I had been told by my psychic, he's like, just be open to some networking opportunities. So I was like, okay, fine. Still nothing was like happening on my own. But all of a sudden, like out of the blue, a girlfriend that I had met, maybe twice, who was super cool. We wanted to hang out. We just hadn't reached out to me out of the blue. It was like, hey, I'm going to be going to Denver for this networking event. Would you like to go? And I got like the most insane full body chills all over my body. My hairs were sticking straight up. And I was like, whoa, this isn't like goosebumps. This is like full body chills for like 90 seconds or something. I was like, and I got a vision that I was going to meet the woman that was going to help me get on stage to share my story with Jenny because I had never been ready to share my story with Jenny before Somatic. And I knew that was, and my vision told me that that was the next step for me and my healing that I needed to share my story. And so I ended up saying yes. And then when we went to Denver, we got there, I walked in and there was this beautiful woman with the brightest smile and a red dress. And I got full body chills and she was so nice to me. So she made me feel great. We introduced herself and that was that. And then I would go and sit in the meeting. And then at the end, they asked all the guests to stand up and ask if there's anything specific they were looking for. And so normally I would never have even done that because I've been too anxious. But I did. I stood up. I was like, I just finished a marriage healing. I feel amazing after being in grief for 25 years. I'm really looking to share my story. And lo and behold, that woman that I met was a somatic coach. She had her own program where she helps women heal and share their story on stage. She literally provides the platform. It's like a year-long program. And then at the end, she runs out of stage. She invites all these beautiful women, and then we share our story. And so she was like, "Oh my gosh, let's set up a call." And so we set up a call, and she's like, I told her my story. She's crying. I'm crying. She's like, I never do this. I never let people in mid year, because it was August and the
Oh,
program started in January. And the talk was happening in October. She goes, but you've done the healing work. I feel like you're ready. You have a beautiful story to share. I would love to be the one to help you. And next thing you know, in 2 months, I'm sharing my story about what happened with Jenny and I. And it was like with the most beautiful people. Like that made me feel so safe. Yeah. And so, yeah. And then once I did that, everything really opened up. That's when it really started opening up. And then
okay.
like I started, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I know we're gonna get to this juicy stuff. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So that kind of full body chill of that confirmation that your
Mhm,
psychic told you, like, be open to networking
mhm,
things, that was
mhm.
like, you and I both know that's confirmation. That's
Absolutely.
clairsentience, right?
Yes.
And so you took that step, met that person. See, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe there is a purpose
Mhm.
and there's a divine meeting and all of the things. I believe that
Yeah.
absolutely is a thing. And that led you to share your story on stage. Okay.
Yeah.
So after you did that and you got up and you
Mhm.
talked about the story with Jenny, what was the next thing that started opening up for you?
Well, ironically, this is how, like, out of touch I am with myself. Everybody else, like, pointing out to me. I had gone to a tarot card game, and my friend and I
Like a
wouldn't go
group
together.
thing?
My 2
A
like,
game?
a group where they teach you yeah, they teach
Oh,
you
oh, okay.
how they
Okay.
teach you a little bit about tarot, and I was
Okay.
like, "I'm into tarot, but I don't know how to do it. I would love to go to this game with my friend." Well, they
Sure.
backed out last minute. Normally, we would have gone, but something in my body was like, "You need to be there. You need to be there." And I was like, "Okay, I'm
All
gonna
right.
go, even though I don't wanna go," and blah, blah, blah. So I go to this tarot game. And then you each get around deck of cards. And so what happens is you draw a card and then you use your intuition and you tell everybody at the table why you feel that way about the card.
Okay.
Just so happens the deck I got was unbelievable because it had brunette and blonde everywhere. And Jenny was a blonde. And the first card I drew was a brunette and a blonde arm in arm, holding each other like this, sitting on a rainbow, watching kids play in the ocean. I was like, sorry, I have to say this because I'm always apologizing for my story. I'm like, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, but this is me and my best friend. She died in my arms. Blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, and everybody's like, "Oh," and I'm like, I'm sorry. And so then I draw the next part, and it's a brunette under the ocean with the moon beating on her. And I was like, oh, why is the one in the ocean? My best friend was that, And so I was like, what? Well, the woman doing the tarot reading was a medium, and I didn't even know. And she goes, wait a minute. And we all stop, and I get full body chills. And she's like, was your best friend an Aries? I go, he was. And then all of a sudden, the lights start flickering on and off. Picture pulled off the wall. She goes, it's here. It's here to tell you that you're a medium. Did you know you're a medium? I go, no, I'm not. She's like, oh, no, you are. Yes. And everybody's like getting full body chills, and everybody's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I'm crying. I'm tearing up with joy. And I was like, what is the so it was like a wild experience. So I like, of course, left there and I'm like reaching out to all my friends. I'm like, oh my God, they told me I'm a medium. The Max tells me I'm psychic. This woman tells me I'm medium. I'm getting all these things happening to me. So obviously something is going on. And my best friend who died in my arms is the one to tell me that I'm a medium. What? Does it get
That
any
is
crazier than
wild.
that?
That's
I
so
know.
wild. Oh my
So
gosh.
wild. And the minute that happened, I guess maybe it was because she was there, my confidence I started paying more attention, And so then I started like feeling Jenny around me a lot. And I was like, I can't really understand you, and then I started feeling like my uncle Rob, but I couldn't really understand him either. But I was like, I'm starting to feel some things happening. And then I went for a walk and all of a sudden I feel something behind me. I turn around and it's a shadow all by itself running towards me and it runs through me. And I was like, I don't want to get scared. I was like, well, that was interesting. So of course I reached out to that medium lady because I got her number. And I was like,
Yeah.
I just saw a shadow. It wasn't a text to a body or anything. It just ran towards me. She was like, oh my God. So she explained to me a couple things I could do or what it could have possibly been. And so that's really how it all started.
So you said like you can sense Jenny or your uncle
Yeah.
around you. This is where we're getting into some of the clairs, and we'll talk about like
Mhm.
what those are here in a second. But can you describe what that is for somebody who is not familiar with the different clair senses? Describe what that is for you. Like if you feel like Jenny's
Mhm.
presence in spirit, how do you describe that?
Yeah, and so it's just a feeling like you're not alone, even though you're alone. Somebody's here, and then you start feel or me for me, a lot of mine is the feeling, but I also get the hearing, the clear audience a lot, and
Audience.
so yeah, and so it started just being like really loud, like to let me know that somebody was there. So I was able to when I felt something in my body, and a lot of times it was full body chills, and it would
Yeah.
be during a specific moment. I just finished the talk for the first time, and I was walking, and I was feeling so close with Jenny, and I even got my video out so I could document it. And I started bawling. I was like, I just can't explain it. But ever since I shared my story, I feel so close with Jenny. I just know she's proud of me. Like she's here with me. It felt so wild, but I knew it. I just knew it was her.
Yeah.
Thinking anything like I could talk to her or anything. No,
Yeah.
but yeah. And then the ear thing started happening, and then I would say, "Is that Jenny?" And I get like full body chills. to confirm. So even
Okay.
though I couldn't talk to her, but I was communicating with her and she was answering me through my body signal.
So here's the thing, and I've done a deep dive on intuition a couple of episodes ago. And listen, we actually all have these abilities. And
Yes.
so they're called clairs. We'll talk
Hmm.
about the clair diaries here in a little bit. But the
Yeah.
clairs are just senses that we all have. So
Yeah.
there's clear audience. So that's
Hmm.
what clear hearing. So that could
Hmm.
be you could technically hear something or get a ringing in the
Hmm.
ears. By the
Yeah.
way, my ears have been ringing more.
I knew it.
So for everybody who's listening, Stacey and I have been chatting a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and she's like, "Have you noticed any ringing in your ears?" And
Yeah.
I had had it once happen before I talked to Stacey, but it's happened a couple of times since then. So that's super
Hmm.
weird. So that's
Yeah.
clairaudience.
Yeah.
Claircognizance is clear knowing, right? So that is where you just know something. And
You just
that could be
know.
like mother's intuition. That can be like
Hmm.
just a feeling in your gut where you just know something.
Hmm.
It could be a lot of people will say maybe that's like the Holy Spirit, maybe if you are a person of
Hmm.
faith, but just that kind of that knowing of something. Help me out here.
Hmm.
Clear sentience, that's clear feeling. So
Yes.
that's the tingles
Feeling.
in the
Yeah.
arms. I get tingles
Yes.
in my fingertips when I'm doing energy
Yeah.
work. And
Mhm.
so this is where you get like a clear sensation or feeling that is not tied to the weather or the temperature in the room, friends.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
which ones am I forgetting? Voyant,
Clair
clairvoyant?
yeah, very yes, clairvoyance, yes.
Clairvoyant,
Yes,
that's clear
I
seeing,
see.
right? So you
Yes,
see images or
yes,
something drops in your mind, a visual
yes,
or what have you. Yeah.
yes. And
Okay,
those
did
are the
I
main ones. And then there's like
yeah.
clairgustance and there's like a nose, a smelling and a
Oh,
tasting one, but those are more rare. So I don't really I've
I
had
don't
a
have
smell a couple times, but I don't know a ton about those. I don't talk about
yeah.
those as much.
Yeah.
But it's
You know,
just different ways that we receive intuition. Yeah.
well, that's exactly right. So, when did you shift from this is happening to me to
Mhm,
this is something that I can use and understand and even communicate
mhm,
back and
mhm.
forth with? When did that shift happen?
Yeah, so I started doing the Somatic in May of last year, and then by December, it was like all of a sudden mediums started reaching out to me online before I even started the Clear Diaries. They had seen some of my posts, that I made about Jenny and stuff, and so they would reach out to me, and Jenny was connecting with me through all kinds of mediums, so it was pretty cool. But this
Interesting.
one medium, yeah, she kept trying to tell me what she would like to because I would hear whispers in my ear, and I was like, "Whispers in my ear." I thought it was my husband. It was not him. He wasn't even anywhere close. She's like, she's like, I'm pretty sure that's your uncle. Is he really tall? Went around. I'm like, oh yeah. So she suggested I start carrying a pad of paper around because I was like, the reading is like nonstop. So I'm like, she's like automatic writing. I'm like, what's that? She's like, I don't know, you can scribble stuff. I was like, scribble stuff. So I'm like, scribbling. Like nothing. I was like, girl, that's not working. I don't know,
Like,
but
do
that's
you
not
think you're
working.
nuts at this point where you're like grabbing a pad of paper with the pen and you're just
Yeah.
scribbling? Like,
I should think I was desperate because so many people had to tell me that, I had a psychic tell me a psychic, a medium tell me a medium, and Jenny, I could feel her. I just knew that. I was like, no, there's something more to this. I just to be patient. But if I hadn't talked to those people, I would have probably thought I was going crazy to be
yeah,
honest,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it is a wild experience.
yeah.
And so I carried this thinking pad of paper around from, I don't know, November to I think January is when when I started talking to random people in my living room. Like all of a sudden it was like, I was watching a show and all of a sudden my ears were like, "Brrr," and I heard grab your pen and paper and I was like, okay. I ran and grabbed pen and paper. And all of a sudden somebody just started talking to me and they're like, hey, I live down the street from you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I'm writing it out. I'm writing like questions and answers and questions and answers. I'm getting the names from people. He wanted me to go visit his wife. She misses him terribly. He wanted me to sing a song to her. And he's like, I go, what song do you want me to sing? He's like, come on, ride the train and ride it, choo choo. I was like, okay, you're a funny guy. He goes, I'm kidding. Sing Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so he said I'm going to run into her during one of my walks at the mailboxes. I'm still waiting to do that. But he said he's going to make sure that I see her. And I'm like, so what am I just going to call out her name and be like, hey, let me tell you, your husband came. I was like, well, he's like, she's not going to mind. She needs to hear it from me. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I've had a little boy come visit me and tell me that he wants me to find his mom because he drowned in a fishing accident and she saw it and he knew I would understand because of what I went through. And I was like, oh my gosh. So like a lot of heavy stuff. And
Oh
that
my
doesn't
gosh.
happen as much anymore. I know. And a lot of mediums were like, that doesn't happen. Trying to tell me that that wasn't right or that it was bad spirits. And I don't believe any of that. And I've learned through my own experiences that we each have our own experiences and we keep judging others for what they go through. And so I just listened to my body and I listened to myself. And that's how I started to gain some more confidence and belief after what was happening. And
Wow.
then Jenny came through during a walk where I was like, we talked back and forth and I was like, it was like so overwhelming. She's like, I've been waiting 25 years for you to understand me, bitch. I was like, oh my God. I felt amazing moment. I wish I would have done earlier. Oh my God. I can't believe it. And so,
Oh
yeah.
my
I-
gosh.
yeah.
Wow.
And so now I'm just doing mediumship readings because people started reaching out to me after I started sharing my story. And so it feels like alignment. And so I've been going through all that now.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Okay,
Yeah.
why did you decide to start sharing this publicly with the Claire Diaries on social media?
Yeah. Be- because I had a huge vision. I had a vision that I was
Okay.
supposed to help. That was my mission. My mission was that I was supposed to help others activate their own spiritual awakenings and help them heal themselves. And so for somebody like me, that, I think it was just another way of healing for me to be seen and put myself out there was not
Yeah.
comfortable. And so I knew the more I realized, the harder I push myself and do these things that are scary, the more tips I receive. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. What can I mean, at this point, this is a beautiful story. The right people will find it and resonate with it. And the other ones I'll deal with. And so, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I have had a lot of people tell me I'm crazy, that job, all kinds of names. And that's been hard to deal with, but it gets
Mhm.
easier like everything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had a huge vision.
Well, first of all, I love that. I have a huge vision with what I'm
Mm,
doing here with the podcast and the other work that I'm doing. And I'll tell you, when that mission and that vision comes down and it's so crystal clear, it's like you can't do anything but go pursue it, right?
exactly. But
Yeah.
if your spirit guides are like, no, you have to do it.
You
Like,
got to do
yeah, we
it.
gave you the vision, you got to do it. Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you guys, so you've got to follow Stacey on Facebook and Instagram. She's the Claire Diaries. That's how I actually found her because your content, Stacey, is like what drew me to it is a lot of these Claire senses have been coming online for me.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
the way you communicated that, hey, these things don't all come at once, they come on
Right.
slowly as you build your awareness. And so I really was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
I'm always asking, am I doing it wrong or whatever?
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
always question myself, but your
Mhm.
content is very like it just met me where I was at. So definitely follow Stacey on social media. Her content's great. We all have intuition. We
Mhm.
all have the ability to
Mhm.
receive messages.
Mhm.
Are we open to seeing them and are we looking?
Exactly.
Right?
Awareness is like key. Once you start being more
Yes.
aware, that's when everything really comes together. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay.
That's so cool.
So last question here. So now that you're on the kind of the other side of this like super deep healing and you've
Mhm.
opened up these gifts, what has surprised you the most about who you've become and how you experience your life today?
Oh, gosh, I'm like a complete new person. I've been trying to heal for 25 fucking years, excuse me, but 25 years.
Yeah.
And I just kind of accepted the fact that I was just going to be, I wouldn't say, I did have victim mentality within myself, but I suffered in silence a lot. I did not share a lot of this with people. I did not feel like I should put that on somebody. I noticed early on it made people uncomfortable. And I've always done things on my own. And so I suffered in silence and I got sick. I got autoimmune diseases and I had cancer right after Jenny died. Like so many different things
Mm,
happened. And so I kind of was like, of course that's going to happen to me. Like everything I said was negative. And
sure.
everything that happened, I'm like, of course it happened to me. If it's going to happen to anybody, it's going to happen to Stacey Miller. And so I just lived in that kind of headspace and just accepted that's how my life was going to be. Even though I always knew something bigger was meant to happen. Even when Jenny died, I just kept saying something. I just don't know what, but something bigger was meant to happen because a little bit sparked after she died. I started having a little more awareness here and there, but it took me a long time for it to really open up. And so
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is I no longer have anxiety. I used to have anxiety every day. I no longer am scared. I have no fear. I have no fear. I don't listen
Mm,
to the news. I don't worry about my finances. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that it's going to be the right thing for me because I just have faith. That's the path that I'm on. And, and just the love that I have for myself and for everybody with everything I've been through
yeah.
is just, it's just, I'm just like a totally different person. The fact that I used to get anxiety. I'm like posting ghost on my personal page. If you look on my personal page, you'll know. I'm like, she posted like nothing. It's like, and when I did, I would get so anxious because that's just how I was. And now I'm just like, I throw everything out there. I tell people when I'm talking to aliens and, I mean, yeah, and it's just like night and day difference. So I just say like, I'm just like, I'm a brand new person. I'm full of love.
First of all, such a crazy, wild story, but
Mm,
how amazing to see what's come out of it.
mhm,
And that's the message, friends. If you're listening and you've experienced something like
mhm.
super traumatic where you've been riddled with
Yeah.
grief, I mean, life is going to life, it's going to
Yeah.
happen. There's a
Yes.
purpose behind
Yes.
it. And you might not
There
be able to
is.
see it when you're like in the funk and you're in
Mhm.
it. You might not be able to see it,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
if this isn't like the best endorsement for somatic and
Yeah.
nervous system healing,
Yes.
I don't know what is, but that
Yes.
might be your next best step if you
Yes.
have dealt with grief or trauma and
Yeah.
you're sick of being stuck. That might be your next best step. And
It's just
friends, I'm telling you, if you've got the ear ringing and the chills when
the
that's your
attention.
intuition. Those are your clear senses coming online.
Mhm.
You've got to follow Stacey on
Mhm.
social media. She's the
Yes.
Claire Diaries. Such good
Yes.
content. You'll love it.
Thank you.
Stacey, thank you so much for being here and
You're
sharing your
welcome.
story. Oh my gosh. And I just
Thank you for having me.
yes, and so glad to know you and to call
You
you
too.
friend, and this is
Yes.
we're gonna be doing more together. I see it.
Absolutely.
I see
I
it. I
feel
see
that.
it.
We're
Okay,
on a nervous system regulation mission. That's the one thing. And you don't have to
100%.
wait 25 years. That's my message. Don't wait 25 years to heal your body.
Hey, if this episode touched you in some way or you know somebody who could benefit from hearing about Stacey's story, please consider sharing it. And please, if you would, like the highest compliment you can give me is to rate, review, and subscribe to the WTF podcast. It's going to help me reach 1 million people and help them pivot out of the funk. We'll see you next time.